have a couple of different schools here today. How many are Chicago school students? Good. And Columbia College? Couple? Are there any Kendall College students here as well? All right. So now there's a big group together. You're all together. So thank you for coming. Clearly the experts are here, so they'll introduce themselves in a moment. But I just wanted to say hi, and then Jessica and Cindy will introduce themselves. And one last thing, too. This is one of our great events as a part of Career Fest. So, yay! Charles will also talk about that. Thank you, guys.
Just to let everyone know that on the call online and in person, we are recording this. So if you're asking questions, just to let you know that your voice will be heard. So let you know that. Okay?
Hello, everyone. I want to introduce myself as well. My name is Jessica Wolf, and I am Coordinator of Educational Support Services here at the Chicago School. So that means I wear a few different hats. One of my hats that I wear, happily so, is International Student Advice. Welcome, everyone, and I'm glad you could make it. My name is Cindy Joe, and I'm pretty new to the school. I'm coordinator of the International Program and Services, and I recognize two of my students from Intact I used to work from before. And I'm taking care of mainly like a study abroad program, and also helping the DSOs in each campus to see if they need help with you guys. And welcome to the school, and so glad to see you with today.
All right, well, good afternoon. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Sergio Guzman, and my colleague is Hector Santos. We're both from IRS. We are from the part of the agency, a very small part, that is responsible for education and community outreach. IRS is more well known for the tax audit side and the collection side, but there is also an education side to the agency, however small it may be. So our goal here today is to kind of give you an overview of what your responsibilities are with respect to taxes as it relates to you as international students. Now, my understanding is almost all of you here are F1 students. Does that sound about right? Okay. So what you need to understand about the U.S. tax system is that the U.S. tax system treats you either as a U.S. resident or a non-resident. Now, why that's important is depending on whether you're a resident or non-resident, it's going to determine what set of tax laws apply to you. Okay, so our definition is not the same definition that the Immigration Service uses. Okay, their definition is completely different than the IRS definition. Okay, the IRS definition of whether or not you're a resident or non-resident is primarily tied to two different tests. One is the green card test, which states that you have a green card, then you're considered a resident for tax purposes. The second test, and the test that is going to apply to all of you, is called a substantial presence test. Okay, and the substantial presence test, we'll just, so I don't have to keep saying that word, we'll just abbreviate it and call it the SPT. Kind of sounds funny, actually. That test is basically, what it looks at is how many days you were in the U.S. Okay. Now that test, the requirement is once you have been in the United States for over 180 days, you are considered a resident for tax purposes. Even though for immigration services, you may be considered a non-resident, as far as IRS is concerned, you're now a resident for tax purposes. So the substantial presence test strictly looks at your days. It counts them, and then once you go over 180 days, we're going to say you're a resident, we're going to tax you as a resident. And all the rules that apply to residents apply to you. Now, why should you care as international students? Two main reasons. Number one, if you read the fine print in your visas, it says that you have to comply with all U.S. laws, right? Well, the Internal Revenue Code is a U.S. law. And technically, if you're in violation of that, you're in violation of your visa. And if the Immigration Service wants to give you a hard time about it, they're perfectly within their right to do so, because you are not complying with your visa. So that's the first reason you should care. The second reason you should care, we'll get to your question in a minute, is that as non-residents, there are some benefits that are available to you, particularly if you work. Okay? But they're only available to you as long as you're considered a non-resident. Okay, the primary ones that are available to you as non-residents is that, depending on your country and the treaty with the U.S., some income may not be taxed at all, some may be taxed in part, or it may be taxed at much lower rates. The other thing is, generally as non-residents, you're not required to pay U.S. Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes. Okay, those taxes amount to 15.3% of your wages. So when you're working, 15.3% is, well, it's not insignificant, right? So that's another benefit that is available to non-residents. Anyone considered a U.S. resident, they have to pay Social Security tax. Okay, so you're not exempt from it. You get taxed on all your income, even income that you earn overseas. Okay, as non-residents, you only get taxed on income you earn in the U.S., as long as you're a non-resident. But once you become a resident, the U.S. taxes you on worldwide income. Okay, not just income earned in the United States. Okay, so those are two main reasons why being a non-resident can be beneficial, at least from a tax point of view. All right. There was a question in the back. Did I answer it?
No. The question was, how do we count this over 180 days? Do we count down from...
I'm going to get to that. So...
Another question, sorry. I'm not sure anyone can even though I spent like the whole year in the U.S., right now I just graduated, so I'm already not a student, but I applied for green card. So I'm kind of in limbo between status.
Right, so we're going to go over how that test works.
Okay.
All right, so those are good questions. So what we typically do in this class, Hector and I split it up into two parts. Okay, the first part that we cover is the Form 8843. Everyone has to fill out this form, whether or not you work. All right, so we cover this form first because, at least in the classes that we've done at other colleges, most students don't work. So those that don't work, they have come to the class to learn how to fill this out. And then once this part of the class is complete, those students who did not work are free to go. The second part of the class is we go over the basic Form 1040 NR, easy, for those individuals who did work. Okay, some of you did work, so what we do in the second part of this class is we go over the form line by line so that you understand how to complete it. All right? So that's how we break up this class. We start off with the 8843, and then we go to the tax return for those of you who did work. So let's get back to that test. All right, so how does IRS know when this test applies to you or when it doesn't? Okay, the Form 8843 is what IRS uses to determine that. Now, this is a very funny sounding name for a form. If you look at it on the surface, you think, oh, this doesn't apply to me. I don't have a medical condition. But you look at it before, as below it, it says for use by alien individuals only. Well, maybe it's an unfortunate use of words, but that's what they call it for. So this form is basically, think of the 180-day test like this, all right? Just so it's easier for you to understand. The 180-day test is basically a clock that's running. Okay, and it keeps running unless you tell IRS, like, wait, I want to take advantage of, basically what you're telling IRS is I want to stop the clock from running because I am an exempt individual because I'm an F1 student. All right? This form is used by exempt individuals. Exempt individuals are only students with F1 visa, J1, Qs, and M is the other one. Those are the only individuals that can use this form because only those individuals can be exempt from applying that 180-day test. Okay, if you have a visa, that's any other visa, you cannot stop that clock from running. It keeps running. But when you're an exempt individual under one of these 4 visas, what you can do is you can say, IRS, I'm eligible to take advantage of this benefit. And this form tells IRS that that's what you want to do. Okay, because that's the only way that we know to stop the clock. Otherwise, it keeps going. All right, so that's what the purpose of this form is. It's for you as an exempt individual to tell IRS that I want to stop that 180-day clock from running. Okay, and the reason, once again, that you want to do that, you want to take advantage of whatever treaty benefits your home country has with the U.S., or at a minimum, you want to prevent certain taxes from being withheld from your pay if you do work. All right, so that's why you want to do this. So this form is actually not that hard to fill out once you know what it's asking. For those of you who don't work, you fill out everything on this form that applies to you. Okay, for those of you who do work, some of the things on this form don't have to be completed because you're going to complete them on the tax return. All right? So depending on whether or not you work, you either fill out all of the form or you fill out most of it but not all of it, because some of it is repeated on the tax return. All right. So the 180-day clock, once again, keeps running until such time as you file this form.
I have an online question. If it's a J1 has a dependent J2, do they do this separately?
Yes, dependents are also required to do this form. So that's a good question. Yes.
Yeah. That's the definition of work, because some of us have practicum, but we're not paid. So that's work as well?
If you're not paid, there's no tax return filing requirement, right, but you still want to file this form.
Right, okay.
Right. Because at some point you may work. Now the rules are, just so you understand how long this can apply to you. As an F1 student, you can be an exempt individual for up to 5 years. Now when we say 5 years, we don't mean complete years. What we do mean is any part of 5 years. So how that works in theory is, say you came in 2010 in December. Just to give you an example, you stayed in December, all of 2011, all of 2012. For our purposes, you've already used up 3 of your years, even though 2010 was only 1 month. So the rules say any part of 5 years. So as an F1 student, you're allowed 5 years, lifetime. As a J1, it's a little more complex. The general rule is you're only allowed 2 years as a J1. But we go back 6 years for the J1. So in theory, if you were a J1, say, 15 years ago, and you took advantage of the 2 years in, and then within the last 6 years, you were a J1 again, you can take advantage of it again, as long as you weren't an F student in that time. Remember, F, the lifetime limit is 5 years.